You know what's strange about the night? Humans call it quiet. They step under streetlights and feel the warm circles of yellow on their skin and think that means the dark has been tamed. They mistake the hum of wires for a lullaby and the rattle of a late bus for a guardian. But the night is not quiet. Not if you know how to listen. Not if your ears pivot at the softest scrape. Not if your nose reads the air like a map written in scents. Hot tar, old rain trapped in gutters, sour beer, fear. My name is Ash. I am a stray dog. I have slept beneath stairs, beneath bridges, beneath rain that smells like coins. I have the city for a blanket and the moon for a clock, and I know what happens after midnight. People vanish, not fade, not wander, not get lost. Vanish like a breath on a cold window, wiped clean by an invisible hand. In daylight, the city is a parade of ankles and paper cups. The sweet fried oil near the market, the exhaust that clings to buses like old coats, the warm bread of the bakery that tosses out crusts at closing. I know the patterns. Which butcher drops gristle at 4, which grocer leaves a bruised peach at 5, which office workers eat at their desks and toss half a sandwich on their curb at 6. I know the walkers who look away and the ones who kneel with a hand out and a soft voice. I keep distance, close enough to catch what falls, far enough not to be kicked. I survive by reading the small things, the angle of a heel before it turns, the knot of a brow before it hardens, the twitch in a hand before it throws. Daylight is a language I speak fluently. Night is a dialect I learned the hard way. It began with a sound I had never heard, and I have heard almost everything a city can make. Not sirens, not wind, not the private music humans leak through headphones. A low, voiceless hum that thickened the air, as if the bricks themselves were breathing. I was trailing a man in a long coat who smelled of rain and onion and a tired kind of hope. He carried a paper bag that sweated through at the bottom and left a dotted line of warm on the cold sidewalk. I kept to the curb, paws soft, tail low. He passed under the street lamp on 5th, the one that flickers like an old eye and buzzes when moths batter themselves against it. And something stretched out from the wall. Not a person, not a hand. A dark seam lengthened, went thin as wire, and wrapped his ankle as easy as twine. He didn't scream. Humans think a scream is the warning bell of danger. They do not know the worst things, don't allow time for noise. His breath hitched, the bag dropped, and I watched an apple bounce once, twice, 3 times, its skin still warm from his palm. The man was not there. The echo of his steps hung in the air a heartbeat longer than his body did. Then they too were gone. The hum shivered through the bricks and slid back into the mortar. I padded forward, nosed the apple. It smelled like him, faint soap, late hunger, a kind of weary kindness. And it smelled like something else too, a scent I had no name for. Not blood, not rot, not ozone before a storm, an emptiness. A hole where a smell should be. Absence shaped like a presence. I waited for the city to react the way it always does. Fast feet, loud questions, the stutter of phones lighting up. But it was after midnight. Windows were closed like eyes. The bus steamed at the corner and moved on. A cat watched from a fire escape, her tail hanging like a question mark. I nosed the paper bag open and ate because that is what a body must do, even when the mind is snagged on a riddle. By morning, a woman found the bag and the apple bruise on the sidewalk and said, "Again?" to no one. A man with a broom pushed the night into a pan and took it away. You can call it crime if it helps you sleep. You can say gangs, you can say kidnappers, you can say statistics, you can say this neighborhood, spit it like a seed. But I am a stray, and I live without the lullabies of explanations. I go where the fear smell clings and I learn the edges of it. The vanishings bloom in clusters, like mold on bread. A block breathes easy for weeks, then wakes up hollow. It happens after midnight, always after midnight, but never the same minute twice. 12:07, 12:42, 12:19, 12:58. It moves, it tests, it tastes, it is patient. There was a girl with red headphones that bled music so loud even I could hear it. She danced across the crosswalk as if the stripes were piano keys only her feet knew how to play. She smelled like sugar and lavender and the brave stubbornness of being young. She stepped into the pool of light on the far side, and the light dimmed. Not out, not broken, as if something drank from it. I saw the seam unfurl along the curb, a shadow longer than any lamp could cast. She leaned, as if a friend had called her name from just inside the wall, her laughter halfway between a sound and a breath. The hum swelled. She was gone. Her music kept playing for 3 more beats before the headphones lay empty on the ground. There was an old man with pigeon seed in his pockets. He whistled a tune with no words, only the shape of words, and the birds wrote it in the air with their wings. He took that corner every night at 12:40-something, give or take a memory misstep. One night the pigeons rose before he raised his hand. The hum went through their bodies and made their feathers stand the wrong way, and they were shadows of birds for a heartbeat, thin and too black. He reached into the pocket where the seed lived, and then there was no hand, no pocket, no man. Only a whirl of confused birds and the echo of a whistle with no mouth to make it. People say they disappear in bad places, and it is true they favor certain kinds of walls. Old brick, new plaster that hasn't learned its own name yet. The underside of bridges where rust tastes like pennies on the tongue. The alleys with no doors on one side and too many on the other. But I have seen them reach from a mural of a smiling family and from the flat, bright face of a bus stop ad. They are not shy. They do not care who watches as long as the watcher cannot speak. The hum is the only warning, and humans do not hear it. The city is loud in all the wrong ways for them. I learned the other signs. Cold where the air should be ordinary. Walls that don't smell like dust, but like nothing, as if the world forgot to finish that spot when it was made. Moths moving in shapes that are not circles, but spirals that tighten until there is no room left for wing. A puddle that should reflect light and reflects dark instead. When I find those signs, I leave. I am not brave for its own sake. I am alive because I am careful. But careful is not the same as indifferent. I circle back. I watch from far. I make maps in my head of where the hum has been and where it might go next. Humans do not see me unless they want to. They step over me and around me. They tisk with soft pity or hiss with hard disgust or whistle invitations that lead to hands that close too fast. They do not see what I see. But they move through the places where it lives, soft throats bared to a night they think is empty. I have tried to warn in the ways I can. A growl at a threshold no one else recognizes as a door. A bark that sounds, even to me, like nothing but a stray asking for crumbs. I am Ash. I am not a prophet. I am only a dog with eyes that have outlived the kindness of looking away. The city keeps its tally in quiet ways. Missing posters bloom on poles like pale flowers that never open. Candles pool wax at corners in the shapes of the names they honor. Some vanishings get vigils and speeches. Some vanishings get trash bags and a shrug that looks like a man folding into himself. Fear travels. It changes the way people hold their keys, the way they stand with their backs to walls, the way they talk about a route they will take and then take another. But after midnight, fear is a flavor the city knows by heart, and the hum does not mind its taste. If I sleep, it is in hitches. One ear wakes while the other rests. One eye blurs while the other shines. I dream in scents, the first clover of spring 3 blocks from the park's broken gate, the hot metal tang of rails above the river, the way the hospital doors breathe out antiseptic and sorrow each time they open. I map the hum in my sleep too. It has been drifting south from 5th to 7th, from the factory windows that hold their shattered teeth to the new apartments that pretend they are safer because they are new. It is coming toward the place where I sometimes curl under a stoop warmed by the laundromat's dryer vent, where the night is threaded with soap and steam and the steady heart of machines. Tonight, the wind carries a thread of it early. Before the clock face, I watch through the pawn shop window clicks to 12. The moths over the laundromat dance wrong. The puddle near the curb holds a moon that blinks. The street light over the crosswalk breathes in and does not breathe out for a long, long moment. I stand, shake cold from my coat, and taste the air. Old rain, hot wire, and that other thing, absence shaped like a hand. Somewhere close, a pair of small sneakers slap the pavement in an unsteady rhythm. The hum grows, a mouth behind a wall opening without lips, and I know, before the minute hand kisses midnight, that the city is about to forget someone again. The hum thickened until it was almost a second heartbeat inside my head. My ears pressed flat, my tail sank low, my paws shuffled against the pavement, though I tried to stand still. The sneakers drew closer, small, quick steps, not heavy enough to be an adult. My nose caught the scent before I saw him. Soap, crayons, the faint sugar of candy chewed hours ago. A child, alone. My chest tightened. Children out after midnight always mean one of two things: trouble that chases them or trouble that waits for them. He came into view beneath the dim streetlight, his face half shadow, half innocence. His jacket sleeves dangled too long, his backpack slumped as if it carried stones instead of notebooks. He hummed to himself, a tune cracked with nerves. I wanted to bark, to warn, but the hum from the walls rose higher, louder, drowning even the thought of sound. The street stretched in both directions, empty, too empty. The boy slowed. He tilted his head, listening to something no child should hear, and I knew then the shadows had chosen him. The seam in the wall opened, thin, jagged, darker than any night. It pulsed as if it had a throat. I saw it lean, stretching toward the boy's arm. He froze, his breath hitched, the kind of silence that comes before a scream. I lunged, my paws scraped stone, claws sparking, my body crashing between boy and wall. I barked, not the hungry bark of a stray begging scraps, but the ancient bark dogs carried from wolves, the one meant to wake the sleeping and call the pack. The sound tore through the hum like a blade. The shadow hissed back, a sound like wind over broken glass. The boy stumbled, tripped, fell on the curb, wide-eyed and shaking. I planted myself between him and the wall, fur bristling, teeth bared. The seam quivered. It recoiled but did not vanish. It knew I saw it. It knew I knew. The hum rose again, pressing into my skull, making my vision blur. But I stood. The boy scrambled to his feet, clutching his backpack straps. "Doggy," he whispered as if he wasn't sure I was real. I nudged him with my head, hard, shoving him down the street. He stumbled, then ran, sneakers slapping faster, fading into safety. Only when his scent thinned into the distance did the seam retreat, sliding back into brick as though melting. The hum sank lower, leaving only the echo in my bones. The streetlight flickered twice and steadied, pretending nothing had happened. My breath came in short, sharp bursts. My legs trembled, but I did not lie down. I could not, because I had just learned something. The shadows do not take everyone without witness. When challenged, they hesitate. Not for long, not forever, but long enough. And I, astray, with no home and no name beyond the one I gave myself, had stopped them, at least once, for one child. But I had also painted myself into their ledger. The wall knew me now. The hum had felt me. And nothing in this city marks you and forgets. The next nights I did not sleep. I prowled alleys, circled blocks, mapped the places where the cold spots grew deeper, where the moths spiraled too tight. I saw fewer vanishings but more signs. Walls that rippled as if holding their breath, puddles that swallowed light, reflections that stared back a fraction too late. The shadows were shifting, testing, watching, and I felt their attention turn toward me. When I drank from a gutter, the water rippled though no breeze stirred. When I curled beneath a stair, the wood above me hummed faintly, like a warning. One evening, as the sky bruised purple before night, I limped through an alley where the dumpsters smelled of stale bread. A woman squatted at the far end, her coat thin, her hands shaking as she lit a cigarette. She glanced at me with eyes tired enough not to fear. "Hey, Mutt," she rasped. "See anything out here tonight?" I froze, ears high. No one had ever asked me that. Not really. She laughed, bitter and small. Course you did. Dogs always know. She dragged smoke into her lungs and exhaled toward the wall. The seam rippled there, faint, listening. She flicked ash at it. Not tonight, she muttered, as if bargaining. I backed away, hair raised. She didn't see the ripple deepen behind her. She didn't see the hum gather strength. I barked once, sharp, but she only waved me off. By morning, her cigarette lay burnt out in a smear of ash, and the alley smelled like absence. Each vanishing carved me sharper. I was only a stray, ribs showing, paws cut, stomach gnawed by hunger. Yet I carried a knowledge no human wanted and no other dog seemed to bear. I wondered if it was the life I had lived, outside ignored, eyes always low but watching everything, that made me see. Or maybe the shadows chose me as their witness, the one creature who could not tell the story to anyone but the wind. Weeks blurred. Fear spread through the city in whispers. Posters bloomed on poles, candles guttered in glass jars, mothers clutched children tighter. But midnight still came, and the hum still rose, and the walls still opened their seams. I began to notice the pattern more clearly, not just time, not just place, but hunger. The shadows were not random. They were circling inward, testing stronger prey, bolder targets. They wanted to be seen, or they no longer cared if they were. One night, as the clock on the pawn shop struck 12, I stood in the center of 7th Avenue. The streetlights hummed, cars gone, windows dark. The air turned colder than winter, though my breath did not cloud. My fur lifted, my bones locked. From 3 walls at once, seams stretched open, thin, tall, trembling with anticipation. The hum was no longer one note, but a chorus, layered and deep. I realized then, they were not many. They were one thing, everywhere at once, testing how wide it could spread. And for the first time, it did not hide from me. The shadows leaned, long fingers brushing toward my paws. They wanted me, the stray who had barked, who had pushed back, who had defied. I braced, teeth bared, heart slamming, knowing I had no one to shove to safety this time. Only me. The city held its breath. Midnight ticked past, and I understood. They weren't just taking people. They were practicing, preparing, for something far bigger than alleys and quiet streets. I turned and ran, paws bleeding against the pavement, the hum chasing behind me like a tide. It followed me all the way to the bridge, where the trains thundered above, their metal screams tearing holes in the hum. I collapsed under the steel, gasping, trembling, but alive, for now. And I knew with a certainty, deeper than hunger, that the vanishings were only the beginning. The bridge trembled with each train that screamed across its back, iron wheels shrieking like some wounded beast, and for a while their thunder drowned the hum that had chased me there. I lay pressed against the cold concrete, chest heaving, tongue lolling, every bone in me rattling. My paws bled into the grit, the metallic taste of my own fear hot in my throat. The city's night noises trickled back, the drip of water through pipes, the shuffle of rats in the trash, the echo of a distant car alarm. But I knew it was only a pause. The hum would return. Shadows do not tire the way flesh does. They had found me now, and once found, nothing is ever forgotten. I rested through the dying hours of night, ears twitching at every rustle. By dawn, when the sky bruised pale and weary light spilled across the rooftops, I dragged myself up. The world seemed ordinary again. Commuters stomped across sidewalks, horns barked at red lights, bakery doors opened with the sweet smell of bread. But to me, nothing was ordinary. I could still feel the weight of the seams, the way they leaned, the way they hungered. I padded back into the waking streets, invisible as always, yet carrying knowledge like a thorn under the skin. The vanishings were no longer whispers in the night. They were growing, testing, swelling like a tide that would one day flood every street. In the weeks that followed, I watched more carefully. The patterns sharpened, Disappearances no longer clung only to alleys or broken blocks. A man vanished from a bus stop while his fellow passengers blinked at their screens. A woman stepping into her apartment lobby never reached the elevator. A child playing hopscotch outside a corner store dropped her chalk midline, and when her mother turned back from the counter, she was gone. The city murmured explanations, crime waves, human trafficking, hysteria. But explanations do not erase sense. And I smelled the same thing each time. That hollow, copper rot absence, that nothingness where someone once was. I learned something else too. The shadows, the hum, they had begun following me. Not always, not close, but enough that I felt the cold creep along walls where I paused. Enough that puddles rippled when I drank, though no breeze stirred. I saw my reflection delay, half a second late, as if deciding whether to come with me or stay behind. The city itself seemed to turn watchful eyes toward me, the stray that dared to bark when silence was demanded. One night I returned to the laundromat vent where the warm air eased my old bones. The scent of soap clung to the bricks, familiar, safe, but the moths above the streetlight no longer circled. They spiraled, tight, frantic. The hum began before midnight, low and hungry, rolling through the ground. My fur bristled. I crawled from under the stoop and lifted my head. Across the street, seams rippled in three walls at once, darker than black, stretching like mouths that had found the courage to open wide. And then I realized they weren't waiting for chance anymore. They weren't satisfied with strays or solitary walkers. They were gathering, converging, swelling in places where crowds would pass, where dozens could be swallowed in one breath. That was the night I understood the vanishings were not the story. They were only rehearsal. I limped through the city carrying this truth alone. Humans looked past me as they always had. To them, I was still just ash, a ragged dog scrounging for scraps, ribs showing, tail low. But I had seen enough to know the ending of their story if no one listened. The hum was learning. The shadows were growing. And when the city clock struck 12, when the walls shivered and the seams yawned open, it would not stop at one boy, one girl, one lonely traveler. It would open wide enough to take them all. That night, under the bridge where trains roared like iron guardians, I lifted my muzzle and howled. Not a bark, not a warning, but a long, shuddering howl that scraped the stars. A sound to mark my choice. I was Ash, a stray dog, forgotten by everyone, but I would not forget what I'd seen. If the shadows wanted me, then I would be the one thing between them and the city they craved. Because sometimes even a stray can choose. And when the next midnight came, I did not run. I waited.